Tick tock, the clock is ticking on Diddy because on Friday he finds out what his sentence is going to be. But today he found out what prosecutors would like that sentence to be, and it is vastly different from what his attorneys have suggested to the judge. Prosecutors want him to do 11 years, just over 11.
The Combs family has turned their father's prison sentence into entertainment, and the first episode feels less like a comeback and more like a confession. Most people expected the sons to stay silent, let the lawsuits fade, let the conviction slip quietly into hip-hop mythology. But then the trailer dropped, and their carefully managed narrative cracked wide open. Sources close to Zeus Network say the documentary was never just about defending their father. It's a calculated attempt to rewrite history while the ink on his felony conviction is still fresh, timed precisely as his appeal hangs in the balance, with the power to either loosen the walls around him or seal them shut for good. And that timing matters, because Justin Combs is now named in a Los Angeles Superior Court filing that alleges he lured a woman to a Beverly Hills mansion in 2017 under false promises of employment, where she claims she was held against her will and assaulted by masked men, one of whom she identifies as his father.
Footage ended up going to 50 Cent and his production company, and it's kind of the centerpiece.
Sold to them.
Yes, was the centerpiece of the documentary. So watch this particular scene because this is where a lot of people feel Diddy really screwed over someone that he should be very, very thankful for.
Christian Combs quietly erased a public threat aimed at 50 Cent just hours after his rival's Netflix expose hit #1. A series built around footage of his father's pre-arrest collapse. Footage Sean Combs himself had commissioned before later calling it stolen when it resurfaced. Now, the Combs brothers' documentary promises truth and redemption, but their own legal filings tell a harsher story, one where the apple didn't just fall near the tree, it decayed the same way. And the question no one's asking yet is why, if this is really about justice, the release is scheduled for the same year their father's final appeal could collapse for good. Because the raw footage, the kind that never makes it to prime time, still exists and it's already been weaponized once. When the trailer dropped, the reaction wasn't curiosity, it was recognition. This wasn't a rescue mission, it was a last-ditch performance from a family that had already lost control of the narrative. Zeus Network claims the project exists to humanize Sean Combs while he serves a 50-month federal sentence. But the timing is too precise, the staging too deliberate, and the silence from their lawyers too loud to ignore, especially since the announcement came weeks after 50 Cent's Netflix series pulled over 22 million views in 6 days using never-before-seen footage of Combs unraveling in a New York hotel room as his own attorneys warned him the walls were closing in. Material pulled straight from his personal archives, as if he'd been unknowingly documenting his own downfall. Now his sons are stepping into the same trap, promising transparency while their own legal shadows stretch across every frame. Their faces in the trailer caught between defiance and resignation as they watch clips from their father's trial. Insiders whisper this wasn't even their call, that the push came from higher up, possibly from Combs himself, still directing the play from behind bars. If that's true, then this isn't bad timing, it's a gamble because the documentary drops in 2026, the same year his appeal could either free him or bury him forever. If it fails, this isn't a comeback story, it's a eulogy. And if it succeeds, the question becomes what kind of man walks out of prison to find his sons spent a year reopening his past on national television.
Absolutely. My name is Big Homie.cc, former celebrity bodyguard, 16 years. I converted my business to protecting women and children, combating human trafficking. Last year, we brought on 17 missing women, 4 children, 3 girls, 1 boy. So yeah.
The real issue isn't the documentary itself, it's what it carefully leaves out. Justin Combs, the older brother positioned as a sympathetic narrator, is currently named in a Los Angeles Superior Court lawsuit accusing him of luring a woman to a Beverly Hills mansion in 2017 under the pretense of a job opportunity, only for her to allegedly end up trapped, drugged into incapacity, and assaulted by multiple men, one of whom she identified as Sean Combs. The filing doesn't paint Justin as a bystander. It casts him as an active participant in a scheme that chillingly echoes the most serious allegations against his father. Yet the trailer offers no hint of this legal firestorm. No acknowledgement that the brothers themselves are facing accusations that threaten to eclipse the very image they're trying to rehabilitate. Instead, the documentary ends with a prison phone call from Fort Dix, Sean Combs's voice cutting through the silence less like comfort and more like command, raising the question not of whether he's involved, but whether he's still directing the narrative from behind bars. Christian Combs has his own shadows to outrun. A 2024 lawsuit alleging he assaulted a woman aboard a yacht chartered by his father in December 2022, groping her, pressuring her into an intimate encounter, and then having her fired when she resisted. A case still pending, but damaging enough to reframe his now-deleted threat toward 50 Cent as panic rather than bravado. After 50's Netflix series premiered, Christian briefly posted that he'd slap the F*** out of him, only to delete it within an hour, too late to stop 50's blistering response that reduced the exchange to a public power imbalance Christian never stood a chance of winning. That moment wasn't a feud, it was a collapse. And looming over all of it is the footage at the center of 50 Cent's series. Intimate clips of Sean Combs unraveling in the days before his arrest, material his team insists was stolen from an unfinished project, even though Combs has spent decades obsessively filming his own life to control his legacy. This time, he lost control. The footage didn't just leak, it was delivered, and while a documentarian tied to Combs has blamed a temporary worker, insiders say that explanation is too neat, pointing instead to someone closer, someone who knew exactly how damaging that archive was and made sure it landed in the right hands. Which raises the most dangerous question of all. Not who leaked it, but what else is still out there waiting.
Everybody will be at his parties. Everybody. And like the first part of the party is normal. It's like going down on Woodville. It's normal. But the second part, when they come out collecting the cell phones, and one of the security guys, sign right here.
The Combs Brothers documentary trailer doesn't end with hope. It ends with a prison phone call. Sean Combs's voice slicing through the silence like a blade, meant to signal that he's still pulling strings even from behind bars. But that moment raises a far darker question no one seems willing to ask. If this project is truly about clearing his name, why does it feel less like a comeback and more like a farewell? The Suns are presenting this documentary as a chance to correct the narrative. Yet the narrative is already cemented, and it isn't moving in their favor. Justin's lawsuit, Christian's ongoing legal troubles, and the unreleased footage still circulating behind the scenes all point to a story spiraling beyond their control. Nothing about the timing suggests confidence, only urgency. What this looks like isn't a family reclaiming its legacy, but one racing the clock as doors quietly close. This documentary isn't a lifeline, it's a last stand. And history shows that last stands rarely end in redemption.
They never would have prosecuted him if it was just a manic.
They prosecuted him on all these other things, and they did find him guilty of this, so that still counts.
The jurors don't always get it right. We don't have to agree with their decision.
I just don't know because I wasn't sitting in the courtroom. You got to see the witnesses. Why didn't they believe Cassie? Why didn't they believe Jane?
The real tension isn't whether the documentary succeeds. It's what happens if it fails. Sean Combs's appeal is still pending, and if it collapses, he's not just facing more time behind bars. He's facing a future where his name becomes permanently tied to everything he spent decades trying to outrun. At the same time, his sons are staring down lawsuits that could define their lives long after their father's legal war is over. While 50 Cent remains in the background with both the footage and the platform, waiting, not finished. The Combs family may think this documentary is a power move, but the narrative was never theirs to control. It belongs to the people who've been waiting years for this moment. The release date tells the real story. 2026 isn't random. It's the year the appeal could either free Sean Combs or erase his last shot at redemption. If it fails, this documentary becomes his legacy, a final attempt to shape the story before the doors close for good. If it succeeds, the question shifts to whether he'll see his son's decision to exhume his past as loyalty or betrayal. Either way, the family isn't leading the game, they're reacting, and reaction is how power slips away. What makes this even more dangerous is the footage we still haven't seen. Combs didn't just document the days before his arrest, he documented his entire life, and the clips that surfaced were only a fraction of a much larger archive. If someone was willing to leak that, there's no guarantee the rest stays buried. The final detail that doesn't sit right is the brothers' reaction in the trailer. Watching courtroom footage with a mix of defiance and visible fear. Despite having been present at the trial every day, hearing the testimony and watching the verdict unfold. That shock only makes sense if there's something in that footage they didn't know existed, something they weren't meant to see. And if that's true, then this documentary isn't about clearing their father's name at all. It's damage control. Because the real story isn't what's being shown, it's what they're desperately trying to keep out.
Yeah, it's not surprising that they tried to get out in front of this and tried to persuade Netflix not to come forward with it. I think it's an interesting argument because what they're claiming is, Curtis Jackson, aka 50 Cent, has had a long-standing, animosity against Diddy and sort of vice versa. And because he's at the helm, they're arguing this can't be taken seriously. This should sort of be seen as propaganda. And one of the things that Netflix hit back with was, yes, he's the executive producer. He doesn't necessarily have creative control.
The final piece of this puzzle is the silence. Since the trailer dropped, neither Justin nor Christian Combs has addressed the lawsuits hanging over them. No statements, no denials, no attempt to get ahead of the narrative. Just a vacuum where accountability should be. And in moments like this, silence isn't restraint, it's exposure. The family may be projecting confidence, but the fractures are obvious now, and the real question isn't whether their documentary can change the story. It's whether they'll even make it to the premiere without another scandal detonating first, because history suggests they won't. In the world of Sean Combs, the past doesn't stay buried. It waits, armed. His sons are standing directly over it, repeating the same maneuver that's been used for decades. When pressure mounts, flood the space with a comeback, a new narrative, a polished distraction. But this time the formula is failing. The cracks aren't cosmetic anymore. They're structural. The trailer may show Justin and Christian watching trial footage with solemn faces, but the real footage, the uncut history, the lawsuits, the unanswered allegations, tells a far harsher story. The industry isn't circling the wagons, the legal threats aren't evaporating, and the public isn't buying the performance. The distractions have stopped working, the silence is getting louder, and the attempt to rewrite the Combs legacy isn't a fresh chapter. It's the same pattern that led them here, finally collapsing under its own weight.
In the moment, it just felt like, what? Like, is this fun for him? Is this a test?
What's more revealing than the documentary itself is who's missing from it. None of the heavy hitters who once circled the bad boy empire are anywhere to be found. No major artists, no industry power brokers, not even the familiar faces who usually rush to protect a fallen giant. The only voices promoting this project are paid ones, and even they sound cautious. Insiders say the push didn't come from the Sons at all, but from higher up, someone still clinging to the belief that the Combs name can command attention, even if that attention now comes wrapped in disbelief. And once disbelief sets in, no amount of polished footage can undo it. The timing only makes things worse. Sean Combs built his empire in an era where influence outran accountability, where charisma could drown out consequences, but that era is over. The same industry that once shielded him is now tightening the screws, and 50 Cent didn't just expose Combs, he exposed the machinery that protected him for decades. That's why this documentary doesn't feel like a rebuttal. It feels like a concession. The Combs name isn't merely damaged anymore, it's radioactive. If the appeal fails, this isn't just more prison time. It's the realization that there may be nothing left to return to. The industry has moved on, the loyalists have disappeared, and his sons are now facing legal battles that could define them long after their father's story ends. The documentary may be their last attempt to shape the narrative, but it's a dangerous gamble, because if the verdict stands, this isn't a comeback. It's a eulogy. And hanging over all of it is the footage that's still unseen. Combs documented his life for decades, and what surfaced in 50 Cent's hands was only a fraction. If someone was willing to leak that, there's nothing stopping the rest from coming out. The family may think they're playing offense, but in reality, they're just standing still, waiting for the next detonation. And when it hits, it won't be a film they're dealing with, it'll be a reckoning.
Did he? Or didn't he? Well, if he didn't, he's got a lot to explain. Well, apparently what Diddy's done now, which is a very interesting thing, is he's on the offensive of sorts. That's right, Sean Diddy Combs has initiated a $100 million defamation lawsuit.
So this is where it all lands. The Combs family is staking everything on a documentary that may already be dead on arrival. The sons are now battling lawsuits that echo the very allegations that destroyed their father, while 50 Cent still holds the footage, still controls the leverage, and shows no signs of backing off. The appeal decision is looming, the documentary is queued up for release, and somewhere out there, someone is sitting on the rest of the tapes, the ones no one's seen yet. The real danger isn't what's already public, it's what hasn't surfaced. What happens when Sean Combs finally realizes he never owned the narrative the way he thought he did? What happens when his sons discover that their so-called last stand was just another move in someone else's long game? And the biggest question of all remains unanswered. What's on the footage that's still being kept in the dark? Drop your thoughts below, because if this story has taught us anything, it's that the next reveal won't be mercy, it'll be impact.